there is any possibility that the Jamaat will provide aid for Shishan, which is also a Muslim
the
country?
problem is not the same as Bosnian problem. In Shishan, it's a part of the Russian state. It's not a different country. It's not a different state either. USSR is divided into so many states. You see, 15 major states I can count. There are some more minor states as well. Out of these, Russia is one state. The entire republic is called USSR. So this Chechnya, which you are referring to, is a regular, integral part of the Russian state. It's not a Muslim state outside Russia. Now the question is, will you change the principle for the sake of anyone that if somebody rebels against the state, within the state has a right to suppress that rebellion? Is it right or wrong? If it is wrong, then peace would be lifted all over the world from every Muslim state. People will go and tell them, some portions come and rebel. And they do, and they would. This is happening sometimes. So in that case, would the outside world be permitted, according to the universally acceptable principle, to help the rebellious? So this is a complicated affair. In Bosnia, it was a different independent state. The recognition was already granted to it by England, by America, by other European states, by United Nations. So how can you refer to it as a civil war? This is absolutely wrong and false. The attack was from without, from the Serbian people, not within the country, but Serbian people from Yugoslavia and their armies, their cannons participated in it until recently, After that they were stopped forcibly, but they continued to smuggle their arms. How can you call it the same situation? Very big difference. Moreover, the people you think are doing it for Islam, you don't know the full problem. The strongest mafia, which was operating in Russia after this so-called liberation, was from Chechnya. Imagine. And the peace of even Moscow was completely shattered, not only because of Chechnyan mafia, but also because there was a Moscow mafia opposite to that. So things which you hear in America were happening in Moscow. And Chechnyans, or Chechnyans, whatever the name be, they were operating in a large area within the Russian state. So, although we look at it from the angle of a small Muslim state being attacked by a powerful Russian state, the people who are knowledgeable, they look at this problem in a completely different perspective. They say it is the fight between two mafias, one belonging to the Moscovites and the other belonging to Chechenyas. And because the Moscovite people belong to Moscow, and because these people were operating there, while the Moscovite mafia people were not operating in Chechnya. So this was a situation which was aggravating and going fast out of hand. When the government of Russia decided that if we did not move now, it will be too late. And also, this was so powerful group that despite the fact that they're Muslims, despite the fact that their state is not a state within a state, with an area within a state, you see, Russian parliament is supporting them now. which means they have billions of dollars at their hands, and they can bribe, they can control, they can influence the public opinion. It's not like poor Bosnians. They didn't have a single paper outside Bosnia to support them, to support their cause. No radio, no television. So how can you equate these? They are very powerful people. They're still fighting it out. And they have their neighborly states which are, the majority of their population is Muslim. So they also, under the impression that it's a fight between Islam and non-Islamic forces, are already supporting them. So who are we to interfere, and how can we support if at all we wanted to? It's not the same problem. I don't say this, whatever I have said is 100% authentic report, because these things which I have read from coverage in America and other magazines, they were appearing in these magazines many months in advance. So they were painting the picture of this, and this propaganda was not negated by any other side. Knowledgeable people who, or journalists who were interested in Russian study, they all agreed that this was happening. So I don't fully support it. I don't know whether this is the only factor or also jealousy of Islam played a part in it. But whatever I have read from the Western media and the picture which many knowledgeable Russians themselves have told me, that is what I am telling you. But again I return to this principle. Cruelty is bad. Despotism is inhuman. But tell me, if a part of the state rebels against the central state authority, would you permit other governments to interfere in favor of that rebellion part or not? Tell me. Even before this started, I was watching what was happening in Moscow. I know from direct sources that these people who belong to Chechnya or whatever the name be, they are very cruel and callous people. The Islam is name behind which they cover themselves. They perhaps have a strong attachment, ideological attachment to Islam, there is no doubt about it. But their Islam is very different from the one normally practiced outside. They are a sect, Sufi, they belong to a Sufi sect, where they practically worship the Sufi who taught them the tariqah. Yes. So they practically worship him, and they don't know any other namaz or anything. But this is not just to blemish their image, but I'm coming to the other thing. Because there has not been any regular Islamic instruction, they have become so callous, and basically they are martial people, very strong people, very powerfully built, and very militant in nature. Now, in Moscow and elsewhere where they operate their mafias, they are merciless killers. For a small thing, they grab it and just strike, or beat somebody unnecessarily. The other day, not the other day, I mean very close, but some time ago, an Ahmadi reported it from Moscow, that another Moscovich man who had come for a meeting, when he was returning, he was very harshly beaten up by some of the same mafia members. Whatever money he had, they robbed him of that, they robbed him even of his papers and things, and left him empty and beaten up, lying in the street waiting death. When somebody else later on passed by and did something for him, his life is saved. But he was very mercilessly beaten up without reason, because they had got everything. So if I know this report is correct, But if the same applies to the others, then who would suffer for them?